ask me the question again.
Yeah. Okay, cool. We are recording. I'm going to restart it. So, first of all, hey everyone, this is the Freelancer podcast. I'm so excited to be chatting with you. Some funny backstory. We were recording, but I had some Wi-Fi internet issues, so we had to cancel that one and start over. And Dan was on a roll, so I had to interrupt him. But my guest today is Dan Spratling, and he's a full-time freelancer. I've been following his journey for about 2 years now on social media, and I've really loved what he's done. And I'm really excited for this chat so that he can share, what he's done, how he got there, and all that stuff. So it's going to be a good one. And with that said, Dan, thank you so much for joining us once again. And I think maybe you can just start us off, with who you are, what do you do, and we can take it from there.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much for having me on board, even if it took 2 rounds to record this. So yeah, I am a freelance web developer. I work specifically with Jamstack technologies. And I've been building up an agency over the last 6 months or so, where I've had freelance work. I went freelance about a year ago and got enough clients and did kind of a good enough job that they kept coming back to me, and I kept building up that relationship so that I could have more clients and then reach out to other people to kind of help me with that work, bring on more people to do a better job than I could do on my own.
Awesome. And as I said in the previous recording, I'm like, obviously that's amazing, and I find that like people often look at freelancing success like that iceberg, only looking at the top, but like 80% is actually underneath, the ocean. And let's talk about that section now, like how you got to where you are, and we can just, ask some follow-up questions from there.
Yeah, so I started web development 5 years ago. I went to university. I knew I wanted to work in tech, but I didn't know what I wanted to do specifically. While I was at uni, I narrowed down what I was doing to kind of web development, but then still, compared to where I am now, had no idea what I was doing. I left uni. I got my first agency job in a WordPress agency. They were 4 people. I stayed there for a couple of years. Did a lot of front end work, not very much WordPress or back end work, and then moved on to kind of other agencies with more people. I've worked in an app development consultancy, so they created apps for other companies. But I'm glad I did that because it gave me the experience that I knew that I didn't want to kind of focus on that one specific area. I like working in web dev, and I'm kind of glad I've reached out to other areas to see what I do and don't like.
Wow, that's actually almost like a dream for so many freelancers to be able to like get that hands-on experience. I mean, so many people that I speak to, and personally for myself, I didn't start in like an agency, which is like pretty much what you do now. So it's almost like, getting a salary to like learn, like it's actually your degree. It's like your MBA essentially. I mean, how did that like, surely you learned a lot from that process, or like, how did that shape the way you do things now?
I learned that a lot of the learning just happens on the job. There's a lot that you can pick up while you're working, and you're never going to go into any job knowing everything you need to know for it. And that's given me a lot of confidence now when freelancing, and also when running an agency, that especially when winning work and trying to like pitch to clients and be like, we can do this for you. Unless it's a very easy job or something that I've done exactly before, I'm never like fully confident that I've done every aspect that they're asking for, but I know that I can learn it as I'm working and pick it up and figure it out on the way. So that's one of the things that working in other agencies and also kind of jumping between different technologies has taught me, that you don't need to know everything before you get started.
Wow, I mean, that point alone is like so crucial, I mean, I'm sure you get a lot of people asking you about like getting started with freelancing and all that. And in my experience, so many people always try and, you know, figure out the everything before they actually get started, you know. And I just made a note here. I mean, essentially what you're saying is like learn as you go, you know, like you don't have to figure everything out or have all the answers, but you can adapt and sort of figure it out, you know. And I think that's like absolutely key, you know. I mean, how is that, would you say that that sort of trait has like got you to where you are now, or what other character traits or attitudes did you have to you know, apply to actually do well here?
I think that's probably defined kind of who I am as a person, and how I've kind of like grown from just being a developer to a freelancer to an agency owner, going along that route, and kind of having that hunger to find out what's next, and also just not like being. I don't want to say that I wasn't content, because I enjoyed the work that I did, but I also wanted to kind of learn more and pick up new stuff, and I was always kind of like I was the one who was trying to drive the technology and the business forward and be like, well, here's how we could do this with the headless approach, or here's how we could use React in this situation, and coming like along and just kind of, it's, yeah, I would say that drive to kind of learn new things and try and do better all the time is what's brought me to where I am. And I know that there's a lot that I can't do, and one of the things that I've been finding as I've been growing as an agency is that there is just not enough time in the day to do everything. I would love to learn how to be like a proper SEO professional and understand that aspect of things and how to write really good copy, but they take so long to learn. And for me now, running an agency is the most important part of my business. And I know that there's other people who can do a much better job than I can. And that's fine. So as an agency, I can bring on board others. But if you're a freelancer, then you could just work with others. You could share kind of a project between the two of you and say like, well, I'm a freelance developer, so I'm going to bring on a freelance designer, and we're going to work together to create an amazing project together, because individually you might be lacking in that area, and that's fine. So there's a limit on how far your desire to learn should take you, because you can't ever learn everything. So pick what you enjoy the most, and then other people can do the rest.
Yeah, I love that mindset again, you know, and I think there's also like almost like a sense of humility that I think one needs to realize, like you don't have to master everything or be good at everything, you know, to run a successful, you know, agency. And I mean, so many people are good at development, let's say, but not necessarily, you know, like marketing stuff, dealing with clients, and you know, things like that. And I do think that can be learned, but I mean, you like certain things and others. I mean, you want to outsource, you know, the things that you don't like. So I mean, your current business where you are now, how would I mean, what type of services are you offering at the moment, and like what is like an average, I would say, week or month or day look like for you at the moment now?
So right now we offer, so I can do design and development. So that's kind of where we started working towards kind of that UX design and development process. And that's how I built up my freelance business. But then we've brought on a couple more designers, a couple developers and a designer to help with that. And now we've started reaching out into areas that so take a step back. I liked to have that oversight of like the things that I was doing. I had clients who wanted design and development, and having like that understanding allowed me to kind of create the agency in the way I wanted it to be. I'm now being a bit more flexible and saying like, there's stuff that I'm not confident in, like copywriting, but I still need to bring those people on board, because there is work there. Clients want it. They want it from us because we can provide a good job, and I can still oversee it, but there's a bit more trust in the people that I need to bring on board. So yeah, it's one of those things where it's kind of hard to figure out exactly what you need to do. But again, it's about like, well, if I don't get it right first time, that's fine. Like,
Mm.
one of the things I find with freelancing and agency work is you've kind of got to price that into the project initially, that there's always going to be a learning period, and you might make mistakes, and you might finish a project at break even, or maybe even a loss for that one project, but that's okay because you've learned a lot, and you can take that knowledge forward to the next one and reduce the time and then make a profit on that one. So
yeah, great. Great advice. I think I'm curious now. I know you're working with a few clients, and you've got people on board helping you with certain projects. How did your freelancing business look, let's say, 2 years ago, and like how has that progressed from there? How did you start getting clients, and walk us through that process, and like what went on your mind, and pricing, and all that stuff.
So when I started freelancing, I went mostly through Twitter. I was determined not to use something like Upwork or Fiverr. I just don't connect with those kinds of platforms. I don't want to be fighting a battle to win my work. I want people to come, like, to reach out to me. That might be different for other people. That's fine. That's on whoever, like, who you are and what kind of personality you have. If you want to go out and fight for that work, then that's fine. That's a great way of doing it. That's not me. I like to create great work and then have people come to me and see it and be like, oh, that's amazing. I want something similar. So I started doing that through Twitter. I was building in public. I created my portfolio website as a freelancer, and then created some of my projects also on Twitter. That built me up a reasonable following. I've now got about 15,000 followers, but at the time I think I had about 6,000 when I went freelance. So a respectable amount, but not huge, not ridiculous. And then that got me enough work. I found one pretty small client who, like, at the time, it was about a week's worth of work. It wasn't huge at all, but it got me my foot in the door. It gave me a project that I could say I've actually done a freelance project. And then I got another couple of clients who, one was another smallish project, and then one was lots of regular work. So it kind of felt like working in a business or an agency. But I was responsible for what I did. There was a lot more responsibility in that one, where I said what I thought should happen, and most of the time they listened to me. They were treating me like the expert, which is a great relationship to have. And then that lasted probably the best part of a year. So it was a good experience because I had a few project-based pieces of work, even if they were small, and like a more of a retainer ongoing piece of work that also was like really helpful in me understanding how to price myself. One of the things that I found, and I keep finding with projects, is that I tend to, even though I'm charging high at the moment, at least people will see on Twitter and be like, that's a good amount of money for a project. But when you consider how, like, if 5 people are working on it, then that money gets split 5 ways almost. It then all of a sudden disappears, and you've got to account for things like tax. You've got to account for any downtime, all the learning that you've got to do. There's a lot of things to account for, and all of a sudden money kind of disappears. But I've learned that always charge more than you think you're going to need. And if you're on a retainer project, then be careful that doesn't just disappear. And that's what happened to me, not through any fault of the business I was working with. They just had a couple of people leave at an inopportune moment, and while they were kind of redirecting how their business was working, they were struggling to keep in touch with freelancers. So be careful with how you approach things, and maybe make sure you've got a bit of money in the bank, just so that if one thing doesn't work out, then you've got enough time to go and try and figure out what's next.
Wow, I mean, there's so much there. So
sorry, I keep
no,
keep finding one point and then going to the next one.
No, it's great. It's great. So Twitter, you found it was your first client on Twitter, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I think my first 3 clients all came through Twitter.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So now the next logical question is how? How did you do it? What did you post? Why did they find you? Why you and not the other thousands of others, who are also on Twitter? What did you do differently?
I think I was just honest. I have always posted stuff that I've been working on, showcasing my thought process, how I work, why I'm thinking that way. So for me, that would be like, if I'm creating a new feature on a website, then I would say what I'm building, but also why I'm building it. So if it's like a navigation, I think one of the things that I showcased on my portfolio when I was building it was I created a mobile navigation that's kind of more how an app would work than a website. It's got navigation at the bottom of the page with like 4 links that you click on, and then when you click on one of them, then a larger overlay comes over, which is more representative of how an app works, whereas a website usually has kind of a burger icon in the top corner. So I showcased things like that and then explained my reasoning behind it. So for that, the example was, it's better, like an app layout for that sort of navigation is better because it's easier for you to access. It's less independent. Like, it doesn't matter if you're left-handed or right-handed. You don't have to move experience, and that's kind of the approach that I was going for. And I think that helped drive clients to be like, look at my work and be kind of think that I could provide that same experience for them, even if it doesn't work out in the end. Like, having that drive to bring forward better experiences for people, whether that be better experiences in dev, better experiences for customers, or whatever. It's just a great kind of approach to take, and people love it.
Yeah. First of all, that's great, and I love that, because you essentially let your work do the selling for you, and yeah, I think that's actually a very good strategic way of getting clients these days. So also the other thing I want to highlight, and maybe you can touch on this, because a lot of people are going to be thinking like, okay, fine, I will just create a few Figma links and also talk about it, and maybe some example websites to add to my portfolio or whatever, and I'll post a few tweets about it. But Dan, where's my clients? What do you say to those types of people?
I would say, yes, showcasing your work is a really good way of finding clients, but they also need to actually see you. So I wasn't just using Twitter to post stuff and get people to see my work. It did help, but I was also making connections on Twitter. I was reaching out to other people. I've built quite a good network of people like you, but many others who all either are freelancers and could give me advice on how to build up my business, or who are just good connections to have within the tech industry. And a lot of people who are looking for freelance work on Twitter, this is specific to Twitter, don't really know who they're looking for. And they will reach out to people who are prominent in tech Twitter. And then they might refer them to you. So I've had a few people who said, Dan, I'm not a freelancer, but I've got people looking for me to give them freelance work. Can you do this? And those kind of referral projects are really good, because you don't need to sell to the people who want you to work with them. That's already been done for you. They know that they're looking for work. They've reached out to try and get someone to work with them, and then they've been told that you, like me, are the perfect person for the job. So it's those are really easy wins. So if you can build up, so I think having kind of that and this is a good example of like how Twitter worked for me, but you could do this with a portfolio. It doesn't have to be Twitter specifically, but having somewhere that showcases your work and how kind of your approach works for clients, and also building up that network, is like a great combination.
Yeah, I love it. Great advice. And also, I mean, on a practical level, I think I can only assume. Maybe you can share about that, but I take it you didn't just post about it once, right? I take it you were like there was some consistency and persistence. I mean, it didn't happen on the first tweet, you know.
No, so to build up my Twitter, it took me probably about 3 or 4 months. While I was like, I did this before I left work and started freelancing, so I had already built up a reasonable following, and I was probably posting 2 or 3 times a day, most days, including weekends. You can schedule tweets in advance if you want to. That works for a lot of people. But having kind of that consistency does really help with getting new followers, but building those connections, being seen by others. And not every tweet works, but it does help. And that applies to most social platforms. I think for Instagram, it's about once a day they expect you to post. And then for LinkedIn, it's maybe once or twice a week. They're a bit more relaxed because they show stuff more. It lasts longer.
And I think also, I mean, you are also touching on an important skill set. I think so many freelancers, particularly when it comes to front end and web design, almost neglect or don't take too seriously, and that is understanding UX and CRO, conversion rate optimization. Because at the end of the day, to be able to speak about what works or like from a position of knowledge or experience, I mean, you essentially need to know about the topic. What is your feedback or what is your advice for someone wanting to learn about that topic? How would you sort of start us off on that?
It depends on how much experience you have previously. If you have a good amount of experience in development or design or whatever previously, then there's always things that you can talk about that will be improvements that you can bring on board. So I'm thinking more from a perspective of you've already won the client and you're working with them, then you notice some other things. It's a great way of getting more work with the same client after you've kind of got a project going already. It's like finding flaws in their current systems, and that's hard to see before. Like, you might be able to get a good understanding, but it's hard to see before you start working with them because you don't have that in-depth knowledge into how their company works, how their platform is built. There's lots of different areas where you can think to go ahead and like improve. So you can go for the UX approach that is what I've kind of primarily focused on. But you can go with a technological approach too, and say like this specific technology would work for this solution because it's better in whatever way. It depends on the client, depends on what you're trying to do, but you can suggest improvements in different areas, and it's a great way of winning more work once you've got that initial project. If you don't have much experience in tech, then it's a bit harder, just because you haven't seen those problems arise in companies before. I don't really know the best piece of advice to give. I would say probably just roll with what the client wants. If there are suggestions that you can make, go for it, because they're great. Again, they're great ways of winning work, but it's harder to make accurate suggestions if you don't really know all the consequences. So I'm a bit more wary for giving that advice to maybe newer freelancers in tech who don't have much tech experience, but it's definitely something that you should practice and kind of try. And if you're trying to figure out how to do it, build your portfolio, build your own websites, figure out what works, what doesn't, use that as your baseline for what clients can improve on, and go from there.
Cool, I like it. Okay, so now clients at the moment, I mean, you said Twitter is a big one. Is that still a big one for you besides referrals of getting new clients, or what other ways have you gotten clients?
A lot of it's still a lot of it is referrals. At the moment, I would say I don't get a huge amount of clients. I don't get like 15 people get in touch with me every month. Right now it's probably about 2, which isn't huge, but it's enough to keep the business going. And I focus more on kind of growing the types of clients that I've been working with. So I've been reaching out to larger businesses and trying to figure out, part of the going agency is figuring out who I can approach. And once you switch to an agency approach, it's also like, it's a bit like winning the clients is harder because they're bigger companies. They've got more processes to figure out how to bring you on board, even if they do like you. So it's like stepping stones, and every time you like go for a different approach, it's like a different thing to learn. But I've had a lot of success with my portfolio. So I put my portfolio out there, and I was getting, even though it wasn't really SEO optimized or anything like that, putting out a few blog posts every month would get some traction from SEO. So people were finding me through search. I was obviously getting leads through Twitter, and they were coming either from referrals or through Twitter, and then going to my website and seeing kind of what I can do. And I was showcasing case studies of the work that I did as well. So that's another great way of being like, here's my thought process, here's what I've done, and that just stays there forever. If you put it on your portfolio website, or whatever approach you take, if you're an agency, and put it on your agency website. But if you have those case studies, it's a great way of saying, here's what we did for a client, here's how we thought, like the problems that we're facing, and then the solution we came up with. And people love that because they can relate it to their own business, their own problems, and see how you can solve those issues. And even if they don't directly relate, they can still kind of understand that you can get like deep into that problem and fix it. One other way I've been getting client referrals is, so I've built up a relationship with some headless CMSs, and that's because I work with Jamstack, and I use these tools very regularly. And I've been showcased on the Prismic website before, and that got me some leads as well. So that's like another good way of getting leads. But that's so in SEO, that's referred to as like backlinking, where you've got your site is being referenced from somewhere else that isn't directly related to you. So that could be other freelancers you've written blog posts for, or you could have maybe Medium posts or something like that would, maybe it's not your like core network of the things that you use every day, but having those links out there on the web is another way of getting people to kind of reach your site, and they can turn into leads.
I like it. Great advice. And I think it just also highlights, like almost like the compounding effect of like, just you've got the first client, now it's like, okay, let's keep it going, and I think that's also indicative of your attitude as well, which I think I find that's often a very neglected topic. We always so easily talk about the skills, do this, but we often neglect the attitude, and it's evident in how well you've done. So yeah, I mean well done on that. I do want to touch on maybe 2 or 3 more points, and that is portfolio website. So maybe you can just sort of share general advice on like, what has worked for you on your portfolio website, and some tips for others, right? And maybe you can also share your link or agency link or both or whatever, so others can also take a peek.
Yeah, so for me, I think the most important part of my website has been the case studies, and this goes specifically for my portfolio, because at the moment the agency is new enough that haven't really got to that point of releasing many pages on the website yet. So there will be an update coming very soon. Hopefully before this podcast is released, it will be updated. But I'll showcase both of those, and you can go through and have a look and see kind of the similarities between my portfolio and my agency website, if you would like to do that. But the thing that I have had most like the best results with is definitely the case studies or projects that I've worked on before. People absolutely love to go through and see what you've done. Another thing that I like to do, and this is maybe more specific to me, but it's definitely something that I think a lot of people could benefit from, is putting just a little bit of personality into your website. So especially when it's talking about a portfolio website that is specifically about you, as one person. Talk about yourself. Show. I've said about showing like how I think specifically, but just talk about you and who you are and how you impact businesses and what like more broader goals you have and stuff like that. People like to learn about you. They like to connect with you as a person. So yeah, showing things about you as well as what you've done is an excellent way of kind of connecting with people. People like to work with people.
Yeah, and I love that as well. And I think again, the focus is on like show what you've done, not necessarily talk about what you can do. And maybe just to share a tip for those who are complete beginners. If there's nothing that you can show what you've done, just create example websites and I mean, it boils down to just build stuff. At the end of the day, the more you build, the more you can share, the better you get, the more clients will find you. If you just build a pretty portfolio website, you're not really standing out. I mean that's like what thousands of others do. So at least this can, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And hopefully that can help. Do you still have like another 10 or 15 minutes for?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool, because I'd love to hear your thoughts on two more things, and that is niching down. So like, have you niched down your agency, and if not, are you going to, or what are your thoughts on that?
So a lot of people have recommended to me that I do niche down and pick a specific industry to focus on. And I haven't done that. That isn't something that maybe I will do in the future, but right now it's not something. I don't want to narrow myself into a box. And then I've worked with agencies in the past who have done that and hated what they worked with, and it's not gone well. So yes, I have niched, but not in the way that people expect. So I've niched into kind of UX design and Jamstack development. I've niched into kind of technologies and approaches as opposed to niching into industries. You can niche in whatever way you want to. And that's worked quite well for me. I get a lot of people who reach out to me because I work with Prismic. I said before that I've been showcased on their website, and that's led to links of people like coming to me. So niching in specific areas or even specific technologies can work. It just depends on what you're trying to achieve. So for me, I want to work with Jamstack. I want to work with that specific kind of website. I don't mind if I'm working with Prismic or Sanity or any of those. Like there's quite a lot of options. There's too many for me to actually work on all the different kinds, because I think there's about 60 different headless CMSs now, which is a lot. But if someone reaches out to me and says I want a headless website, I can give them a good stack that they could work with, or they could suggest one to me and I could put things together. I've definitely had people reach out to me and say, we really like your approach to websites, but we want to work with BigCommerce or Shopify, and can you integrate that into our build? And one of the things that headless is excellent at is mixing and matching tools that can work together. So yeah. So in terms of niching, if you want to niche by industry, go for it. If you know that there's a specific industry, and I know a lot of people focus on things like fintech, go for that. If you want to localize, you can niche by location. So if you want to get businesses from where you are, for me that's like Bath and Bristol in the UK, but you could niche by wherever you live. You could niche by somewhere that you don't live if you want to. Focus on somewhere that doesn't have a lot of web industry, and that would be a great approach for freelancers who, if it's you could drive there or you could just get on Zoom calls, it doesn't really matter. You can niche by a lot of different areas, and try what works and see what you like and what you don't like.
Yeah, I love that, and I think from what I've seen, right, is a lot of people get confused when it does come to niching down. they think that, okay, you have to focus on, accountants, doctors, or, so many different opportunities and everything out there. But a lot of people only focus on the technology, like Shopify. As Shopify is a big one, actually, that a lot of people are choosing to go these days. And even in South Africa, where I'm from, is there's like an agency who focuses on small businesses, but they like give. I know it sounds like, it's like small business is so broad, but their whole focus is like pretty much like cheap websites for small businesses, like an extremely low price. But what they do is they also almost like make it niched in terms of their pricing, which I do want to talk to you about shortly. And that is like very cheap prices. So for example, they'll charge like, let's say $50 a month on a 2-year contract for like including hosting. And you think to yourself, that's like $600 a year. That's $1,200 in total. But the crazy thing is they've got like thousands of clients, and they are literally massive, So interesting approach. Actually, obviously there's, we can probably talk about that, like the pros and cons and all that for another side. But I just want to highlight that point. That's a good one. And then the other one I wanted to talk to you about was pricing. So how do you come up with a price?
Honestly, it's mostly based on previous projects. I work out. So when I started freelancing, it was mostly just picking a number out of the air, trying to figure out if that price worked for the client, and see if that like if they turned me down or not. I know when I started, I had probably about 20 leads come to me within the space of a week.
Wow.
Most of them wanted websites, yes, but most of them wanted websites that are under £1,000, and I wasn't looking to provide anything like that. I even back then I wanted to work with headless websites. I wanted to build kind of in the way that I still right now. It's a bit more in depth. There's a lot more services that go behind the scenes, but where I started in the same place, I was building headless websites, and that kind of level of expertise that I was putting into those websites was worth more than £1,000. So even though I got so many leads, I turned most of them down because I just wasn't looking to work with those kinds of websites. And for a lot of people, that could be an opening. Like they could be providing, they could build up a theme on WordPress and then sell it to all of those clients, get £1,000 each, and have just done the work once. Maybe they change colors a little bit and stuff like that, but like it's an option, it's an opportunity that's there. It's just not one that I wanted to work with. So as I was going, working my way along, I was kind of given a price by kind of a few other people that I'd worked with about rough hourly rates for freelance work. So I started out on kind of that similar rate, and that was for me in the UK, that was £350 per day. As I kind of grew, I realized what I was offering. That price kind of crept up because I realized that I was offering maybe not more than the people that I'd been talking to, but I was more specific in the I was targeting, and I was more providing probably maybe it wasn't a better service, but I was better at providing, delivering that service and convincing clients of what I could give them. So I could increase my price. And as an agency, again, I talked about this a little bit earlier, that there's a lot more costs that go into an agency. As soon as you start hiring other people, that's a lot of money. People are the most expensive part of the business. I don't have really any other business costs. I think I was looking at my my percentage graph the other day of how much of my costs were equipment and other stuff, especially as a virtual agency. I'll talk about that in a minute. But working from home and not having any offices or anything means that people working for working within the agency are about 70-80% of the work. And if I'm including myself in that, then that's 95%. So
yeah, that's true.
I would say it's one of those things you've got to kind of experiment with. Make sure you cover the costs that you have for living. You've got to pay yourself at the end of the day. So you've always got to cover that cost. Anything above that, experiment. Just see what you can get. If you don't experiment, like, you're just going to get stuck at a single price. And maybe that works for you. Maybe you find that is a good situation to be in. But for most people, I think they want to be charging more than they are. That's what I've heard from a lot of freelancers out there. So every time, for me at least, I tend to find that every time I'm fully booked, my project prices will increase. If people want to kind of get me at a fixed rate, they want to guarantee that they know how much I'm charging, then they can book me a retainer, which is a longer piece of work, but it then sets my price for that period of time.
Sure. Okay. So again, so much to touch on here, and and I think I also want to highlight in terms of your pricing that you could charge more, and you did, not only because you actually got more confidence and you realized that your experience and all that, but essentially because also because you were niching down to headless CMS, and you were doing a couple of websites, and you realized, like, listen, I know what I'm talking about here, and that's a premium alone. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, it sounds like you were doing hourly and then almost like fixed pricing now. Would you say that's correct now?
I do both. So
okay.
I do fixed pricing and I do hourly. It depends on the project, depends on the situation. Cool. I tend to find that if the scope of work is very well defined, then it's a project. And I charge a single price for that, and I don't put in how many hours I think it's going to be. I do tend to work that. A lot of people say that you don't need to work that out beforehand. I tend to do that regardless of if it's an hourly or fixed price project. And that's just because I want to have a good understanding of not only how much work is going into the project, but if I can take on other projects at the same time, especially when you're talking about agency stuff. It's really good to have an understanding of how much time you've got available, because you don't want to overbook yourself and then under-deliver. You want it to be the other way around. You want to over-deliver on every project, because that is part of the thing that lets you increase your price every time.
Okay, great. I've got a follow-up question now to that. Have you tried, or have you considered, or have you experimented with value-based pricing?
Yes, I have. I have a project out at the moment that is based on value. And it is a great option it is a great way of pricing for work. One of the hardest things is trying to figure out, it's not figuring out where that value comes from, but actually quantifying that value. A lot of my clients don't have that kind of information available. So it's very difficult to figure out exactly what the actual numbers would be if you were to improve things. If you can work that out, and some businesses have it very open and it's very easy to figure out, then great. If you can get access to that as like part of a discovery package or something, and maybe you could charge like £1,000 or whatever, do a day or so of discovery, figure out what there is within the project, and then price based on value. You could do that too. That's another great way of doing it. It is an excellent way of showcasing how much work, how much value you can bring. But it's one of the more harder ones to actually quantify, just because you've got to get so much upfront information. That's what I find anyway.
Can I offer my 2 cents on that? Because I think I mean, you're doing great as is, but I think if you want to do even better, I would highly recommend value-based pricing. And I think for your agency and the way that you currently do things, with your current experience, with the pricing that you currently charge, with your referrals, with all of that type of stuff, after delivering projects, after seeing how it works and results and all that stuff, I think you are in a prime position to do this. Because just very briefly, right? You how can I put it this? The whole point is you want to sort of deliver on the ROI, right? And I mean, you've got a lot of experience now. Like, okay, yeah, was the previous website, yeah, was my website with the changes. What were the results of that? And I mean, you talk about that in your case studies and all that. So now, obviously, you've got a track record, and now you know that when you get similar websites, you know, just do it. I mean, you can talk from experience and work out your, you know, how can I say, your minimum fixed rate price. And let's say you decide it's, you know, 15,000 or 20,000 pounds. I think that's sort of what you, it's almost like the lowest amounts that you currently charge now. So let's say, for example, it's 15,000. You know, work out that out of a year on what you've done for the previous clients, on their results, for that, and work out if you could maybe charge 20 or 25,000 and justifies the price. You know, I think it's definitely worth trying and really trying to get the information, because at the end of the day, you are a professional in what you are doing, and the way to you know, sort of make a business improve their business and grow is if you know sort of how they are currently doing, what's their most popular product or service, how much they are currently selling it for, and seeing how you can, you know, improve it from there. So I just wanted to just mention that, and you can let me know this time next year how your business has grown.
Yeah, no, that, I mean, for me, that was definitely the plan. It's always been to try and work towards that value-based pricing. The things that have been holding me back is, one, not having the information, and two, being a relatively small unknown agency kind of doesn't give me that leverage. I have leverage as a freelancer at the moment, but then sometimes people come to me and expect a certain price because I'm a freelancer, or they think of me as one, and then realize that I'm an agency, and that's now double. So it depends on, yeah, I mean, I was planning on gathering information from current clients over time and using that towards figuring out value-based pricing. Again, so going back to our niching conversation, part of me not niching makes that a bit harder, because if I'm working with SaaS websites and e-commerce websites and marketing websites and other different types, then they're all going to have different values and different propositions. And as I get more clients of each different type, I'll be able to get that data. But if I just had like 3 or 4 marketing websites specifically, then it would be easier to get a value-based proposition than, I can't say like the value given from this e-commerce website is equivalent to how much I can bring from a marketing website. So it's just gathering all that information to be able to use in my pitches and stuff. But yes, that was always the plan, to kind of go in that route. Just need to get there.
Awesome. Well, Dan, I think this has been really a great chat, and I think you shared so much value and advice and tips for aspiring and current freelancers who are you know, wanting to scale and you know, all of that. And we must definitely chat again, and I want to hear also about the progress and all the stuff that you've been trying and working on and all that stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that. Do you want to share like a parting advice or parting tip for our listeners or watchers?
I would say just go for it. Like, it's really easy to get stuck in your own head and not know what you want to do, or not like, you don't think you've got all the answers, and you don't. Nobody ever has all the answers. You figure things out as you go along, you make it work, and then you keep figuring things out as you go along. Just keep trying, just keep going. It does get easier, you get more used to it. It doesn't ever get like, you don't ever feel like you know what you might feel like you know what you're doing, but you don't feel like you have all the answers. That's fine. It's just you just got to get used to it.
I love it, and that's amazing advice. I love it. So Dan, thank you so much. Where can people find you online? What's your URL or Twitter?
They can find me on my portfolio website, which is danspratling.dev. They can find my agency website, which is skyward.digital. Or they can find me on Twitter, which is @Dan_Spratling.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan. And thank you for our watchers and listeners. Hope you found value from this, and have a great day.
Thank you very much.